Well, welcome everyone to my Stage 6 Modern History Vodcast. The aspect that we will be discussing about today is teaching, research and investigations skills in modern history. Within this talk we will be covering several key points that discuss how to teach proper research and investigation skills that are important to be implemented in the Stage 6 Modern History classroom. The purpose of this vodcast will be to effectively teach my classmates about the given content, challenges and strategies associated with my chosen aspect whilst trying to make it as interesting as possible. The key points or concepts that will be expanded upon are sources and evidence, continuity and change, cause and effect, empathy, significance and contestability. Students who understand these key concepts are able to operate within the discipline, to think and act in ways similar to those used by historians, at levels appropriate for their stage of development. The key concepts provide a focus for historical investigation, a framework for organising historical information, and a guide for developing historical understanding, which is critical in a Stage 6 classroom setting. Point 1. Sources and evidence. Modern and ancient history is based on the use of sources and evidence. In history, a source is anything that can be used to investigate the past. It can be an object or artifact that remains from the past, such as a tool, coin, letter, gravestone, photograph, or building. Or it can be an account or interpretation of the past, such as an online biography, a book or film about an individual from the past. Sources that come from the time being investigated are called primary sources. Sources produced after the time being investigated, such as textbook, documentary, or film, is called secondary sources. Both primary and secondary sources are vital to the study of history. Evidence is relevant information obtained from the sources that is useful for a particular inquiry. Students find this evidence by analysing sources and asking a series of questions. Evidence can be used to refute or support a claim, construct a narrative or explanation, or support an argument or interpretation. Primary sources are from the period and are in some way a part of the event or issue being studied. For example, a soldier's diary where he discusses a battle. Secondary sources are distant from the period. For example, a historian's book which is written after the battle. The distinction between primary and secondary may not always be clear-cut. For example, what about a newspaper report written at the time of the battle, but not by someone involved in the battle? Also, while primary sources are obviously valuable, the distinction between primary and secondary may not be very important. Analysing sources means much more than simply saying which are primary and which are secondary. A primary source is not necessarily a better source than a secondary. All sources must be analysed to judge their value to a historian, and it is important to remember when teaching to inform students that researching a source leads to information and then not evidence, but possible evidence. Class discussion works well for this type of concept. Continuity and change. In history, investigating continuity and change requires students to explore aspects of life that have remained the same and those that have changed over time. Through appropriate activities, younger students can identify continuities and changes, while older students can explore why things have stayed the same or changed. The nature and pace of change and the impact of change. It is important to provide an overview, a chronological backdrop for the period, before introducing activities focusing on continuity and change. Illustrated and annotated timelines can provide a useful resource for teaching about continuity and change. Students can be instructed to make their own timelines and be as creative as possible. Cause and effect. Historians can use cause and effect as a way of explaining factors that led to a historical event or development and the consequent results. Younger students tend to believe that events in the past happened because someone wanted them to happen. While human actions can be important, causation is more likely to involve a network of related factors. There are often multiple causes, long and short-term causes, and social or economical or political causes. Effects may differ from group to group and may change over time. Students should be encouraged to represent their thinking about cause and effect diagrammatically, as casual web charts and flow diagrams, rather than simple linear progressions. A person's perspective is their point of view. the position from which they see and understand events going on around them. People in the past may have had quite different perspectives on a particular event or issue, depending on factors such as their age, gender, life experience, social position, political outlook, values, and beliefs. A historical figure, for example, could have been seen as a freedom fighter by some and a terrorist by others. It is this diversity of perspectives that makes history so interesting. A great activity for this would be to split the class into collaborative groups and instruct them to design and create their own diagrams based on the current topic. Empathy. Historical empathy involves students in trying to see and understand events from the perspective of someone living in another time and place. This requires sound knowledge of the historical context and a conscious effort to make sense of human motives and actions within that context. Teaching empathy requires much more preparation than simply instructing students to place themselves with their modern sensibilities into a historical context. The instruction to imagine you are a soldier in the trenches is not enough. Activities most likely to encourage empathetic understanding are based on real historical figures, are grounded in evidence, require students to examine people's perspectives and motivation within a particular historical context, and provide opportunities for students to engage in decision making, problem solving, or debate. A relevant activity to broaden students' empathy and investigation skills would be a class excursion to a museum or war memorial. If it is too expensive, showing a film in class would also work too. Significance. Significance is the importance that is assigned to particular aspects of the past. For example, an event or issue of the contribution of an individual or group. Deciding on significance is a complex process because it involves making judgments that depend on perspectives and purpose. Significance may vary over time and from group to group. What was seen as significant in the past may not be considered important today. And what was significant for one group in the past may not have been significant for other groups. Students can learn to assign significance by asking questions such as, how did people view the event or issue at that time? How many people were affected? How widespread, how deeply, or for how long were people's lives affected? A helpful way for students to learn significance is through an interactive quiz like the one shown here, where they discover historical ideas. Developments in culture understand sites better and other aspects of the past. It also actively helps them helps them develop their own opinion on the significance of aspects of the past through effective research and investigation. And the last point is contestability. Contestability in history arises from the open-ended nature of historical interpretation. Two historians might produce quite different interpretations of the same event for a number of reasons, including their reason for researching the topic, the sources of evidence they relied on, and their perspective or point of view. An example of contestability in Australian history is a debate over whether the arrival of Europeans in 1788 was an invasion or a settlement. Examining debates between historians can help students and understand how historians use sources to construct historical accounts and how their approach and interpretation can be shaped by their purpose and perspective. Including their political outlook, a class source study would be a very appropriate teaching method for this key concept, followed up with discussion. It promotes the idea that everyone has a different opinion and everyone will have a broader understanding if they are exposed to different viewpoints and ideas within the classroom. And that brings me to the end of the Vodcast. Thanks for listening. See you later.